Hey. All right, go ahead and grab Population Ecology Part 2. Make sure you're taking notes and highlighting on your notes. Okay, so we're talking this time about the size of population. Okay, so, and this will really go along with the Oh Dear game that we did in class. Okay, so if you look at this, this is a J curve, and the reason they call it that is just because it looks like a J. See how it looks like a J, but this is exponential growth, and the word exponential just means that it's doubling. So do me a favor and write the word doubling over exponential. So the population size is doubling, and that's what the human population looks like right now. It's just doubling and doubling and doubling since 2000 BC, since 0 BC, really. Okay, so this has R selected species, and what that means is it's a type of species. R selected species is a type of species that when they have babies, they have lots of babies. Like in Nemo or survivorship curve number 3. They have lots of babies at a time, and they grow rapidly. As long as there are resources, they grow rapidly. And so what this means is when the babies are born and they reproduce, there are species reproduce, it's just like they have plenty of food, plenty of shelter, plenty of water, just unlimited. That's what their density independent. It doesn't matter about the size, or it doesn't matter about the resources. The population grows independent of that. So they have plenty of resources. Their population size is related to resources, not the number of organisms. J curve, we said that. So don't be confused because I said there are species, but the curve is a J, because I remember when I started looking at this, I thought that was kind of confusing, the different letters. So the graph is just a J curve because the way it looks. But there are selected species opposite that we're going to talk about in a minute of K selected species. Okay, their environment has, we already said, unlimited resources. Never going to run out of food. Not running out of food. Occurs mainly in new environments and pioneer species. And so if you look, there's another picture of exponential growth, and that's the number versus the time. But if you think something like after a volcano, then there's plenty of space for the grass to start growing or animals to start living, and so they have lots of space and resources. So a new environment would be like after a volcano, such as bacteria, lichens, and moss. Remember, moss are little bitty tiny plants. They are the first organisms to colonize. So pioneer species is a perfect name for the first organisms. This is an area that are just formed like, and here's your Hawaii, millions of years ago. That's rock until the pioneer species evolved. So if you just take a second and look at the picture. So it started out and they got some moss or some lichen, and that's like algae and fungi together. And then they got some grass, so over time. And then they got, a little bit of bushes, a little shrubbery over time. And then now Hawaii is got lots of big plants, and so that would be an example of an R-selected species, or a population that grows exponentially. Now it has probably reached carrying capacity now, and that's really so. Exponential growth models are not realistic forever because eventually they're gonna reach carrying capacity. ZPG is zero population growth. And intrinsic growth, the population is growing as fast as possible. So, again, with that J-shaped curve, you see intrinsic growth. This is seen as the curve begins to make a straight line upward. So every organism is having a baby. So every boy and girl are having at least two babies, growing as fast as they can, doubling exponentially. Okay, the next thing is, and I actually want you to draw these. So go back beside exponential growth model. Take a second, label your graph, but go back and draw. You can just draw the blue line. and make sure you have number of generations or time on the bottom, and then population size with an N. Population size is always represented with an N. So take a second, draw that, and then go ahead and draw this one beside the logistic growth model. And right here, you just want to draw the red line, because that's showing you exponential versus logistic. Okay, so looking at just the red line right here, now it's highlighted in pink. What happened here was it grew exponentially, and then it reached, look right here, it reached carrying capacity. And so then it started to level off. But what happened, it was growing and growing and growing and growing, and then there was not enough food. So even though some organisms were still being born, some organisms were starving to death. So the population levels out. Yeah, organisms are still being born right here, but the population has leveled out because organisms are dying more rapidly. Okay, so these are K-selective species because they live at carrying capacity, which is represented by a K. I know carrying capacity starts with a C, don't ask me. So it involves K-selection species, and I always think about people, or really not even people so much. Think about an elephant. You know, eventually they're going to reach that carrying capacity, and, you know, there's only going to be a certain amount of food. These are referred to as density dependent. Okay, so I want you to write in the number of organisms depends on the resources. You know, if there's a drought, it's gonna kill a lot of organisms. If there was a drought, it's gonna look like this. If there was, let's see, look, there's your drought. Right, so the resources, the food, the shelter, the water, and the mates directly depend on the size of the population, because if they run out of food, then they're in trouble. Okay, produces an S-curve graph. So you can see this is not a J-curve, it's a S-curve. The environment has limited resources, and that's why organisms stay around the K. So they are limited. More organisms than what the carrying capacity will hold is going to damage the environment. And that's what I think when people, like, we keep having our population grow, and it's damaging the environment with pollution and litter and things like that. You know, just trash in general. Wars, it says more damage is done to the environment can cause the carrying capacity to drop. So remember that carrying capacity is that K. So if the environment is damaged, then, well, carrying capacity is going to get lower. Wars, disease, and famine breakout in a population will bring down the numbers. Yeah, if there's a disease, it's going to bring down the number. If there's famine, that's like no food, that's going to bring down the number. Okay, the lag time, this accounts for the overshoot. So right here, that's the lag time. Let's switch colors for you. Right here, that's your lag time. Accounts for the overshoot. It takes time to begin to see the effects. Okay, and then two different words at the bottom. Density dependent are mostly living things. So they're competing, stuff like that. And then if it's a species or a population is density independent, then the things that would kill them, this is what would kill them, would be, you know, sunlight, soil, nutrients. And so these are the limiting factors. So right above that, limiting factors. All right, I hope that was helpful.